Hey there, DFS Army VIPs. It's your buddy Choppadong, and today's Monday, April 5th. It is time for a new week of MLB DFS, and what I'm going to do is show you the fastest way to set up the domination station for Draftkings tonight for the main slate, and we're going to dive right in and waste no time because this is just really and truly too easy for you if you believe in the randomness and the nature of the game like I do. And I don't need to dig deep into statistics anymore. I just understand that if I mix and match and get the right teams paired up together in my stacks and my correlations, the night is a foregone conclusion to be profitable. Let's dive in. First thing we do, we're going to check the research station here at dfsarmy.com. I'm going to dive into the DraftKings pitchers, slide over to Chop Shop, and I'm going to knock out those big K-score pitchers. I'm looking for anybody over a 500 in K-score. Now, this is the full slate. This would be the all-day slate. So I'm going to come down here and apply a filter. If you see, I click the triangle, click filter, knock out those early games down to the 705 starts. And now we've cut down to just the guys on the main slate. I've got two guys over the 500 K-score. So DeGrom and Morejon are going to get doors in the domination station. I'm going to boost their projections so that I use more of them than I otherwise would. I may throw a Pivetta in there. But when I look at who I want to attack against, I also use K-score. I come down here to the bottom, though, and I start looking at pitching stats from last year. Sierra, whip, home run per 9, walk per 9. I'm looking for high Sierras. I'm looking for sometimes high whips, but I'm looking for high home run per 9s. And the first thing that I notice, yes, I'd like to attack Trevor Williams. I'd like to attack Nick Pivetta, but Morejon shows up on both charts. He's got good strikeout upside in tonight's matchup, but he also gives up a lot of bombs. So I would like to have stacks against him as well as him in some of my lineups, because now I don't care what happens. Whichever way it goes, I'm probably positioned with somebody to do well. And all I need to do in these upside tournament contests is win one. I don't need to min cash in most of my core, get 60 of my 75 lineups through. I'm not worried about that in baseball. I'm trying to spread out. Baseball's random. I'm trying to catch the nuts. And by doing that, I want exposure to a lot of these big scenarios that happen, the boom or bust scenarios. I'm just going to embrace it, shuffle them up in the optimizer, and make a lot of lineups, okay? So once I've done this and I've identified that some of these teams that I want to stack against, teams like the opposing pitcher, San Francisco, Tampa Bay, Houston, of course, LA, San Diego. These are teams that I'll be using tonight in high order. Where do I find those teams? In my leverage stacks, which I'll show you in a minute. But the next thing I'm going to do is go to my Fanduel hitters side. Fanduel, DraftKings doesn't matter. I come over here, I can search by W score. And if I wanted to, I could go position by position by position on that main slate. And I could target Baltimore or Boston or whatever and look at who's doing the producing or who has the best W score matchups. Or I can go position by position, first base, second base, third base. And maybe I take the top 3 or 4 W scores on that slate and give them a boost in the domination station to boost their projections and get more of those key bats in my lineup. Another area that I can go, and this is what I did today, so that's why I'm not spending much time on the other stuff. I slid all the way over here today to the BVP stuff. Maybe you believe in BVP, maybe you don't. But I'm sorting WOBA, weighted on base average, by the highest number possible. And then I come over here to the filter and plate appearances, and I cut out the blanks and everybody under a 10 plate appearance sample size. I don't want anybody under that. I want somebody with at least a little bit of a sample. I can look at their home runs, look at their RBIs, whatever, but I'm looking at ISO and WOBA. And what I want is somebody over 400 WOBA. That gives me 5 guys today. 388 is not bad, but on a smaller sample, you'd want it to be higher than that if the guy is truly smashing somebody. And I'm going to boost these projections in the optimizer. I'm going to take these 5 or 6 guys, and I'm going to boost them so they're in a lot of my lineups. I'm going to come down here to the bottom guys here that have apparently shown they cannot hit the opposing pitcher, like a Jose Altuve, Didi Gregorius, Will Myers even, and I'm going to reduce their exposures in my lineups because they don't show that they're going to do well tonight, okay? That's all I need to look at for the research station on any given night. I can come and when trends starts populating, you'll see me incorporate more of that. Maybe we'll do the starting lineups page here at DFS Army on occasion, whatever. I can show you any of these tools, but this is how I'm setting up the optimizer today. Now that I have my pitchers in mind, my stacks, and some of my key players in mind, I come over here to the domination station. MLB main slate, DraftKings, 75 lineups tonight. tournament mode, one unique player, because I'm going to get all the balance I need out of jacking the randomness through the roof. Okay, high randomness, low uniques, or high uniques, low randomness, your choice. Either way mixes and matches those lineups for you and gets you a wide range of players in your stacks and different stacks, different stacking combinations. All of that works together to create a good attack plan tonight once you've targeted a few key offenses that should have good nights, which we already identified. You're going to come down to the hitter stack rules, click random selective teams. I want them mixing and matching randomly. I don't know who's going to do best. I'm just taking wide shots. I look at our optimal stacking charts, and usually a big 5 stack on Draftkings is what's going to work. That's what's going to be in the nut lineup more often than not. So I'm going to use any of those combinations of 5 stacks that I can. Some 5x3. On the bigger slates, 10, 11, 12 game slates, I'm using 5x3 a lot more than 10% of the time. But tonight, just 10% of the time. 5x2 is almost always the optimal formation. So I'm going to use that with the majority of my lineups. And then I'm going to include a lot of options to have 5 on the left and then one-offs, or 5 on the left and then a pair, or a 3 stack, whatever the optimizer wants to do. Max flexibility. I don't need 4 stacks, I don't need 3 stacks. If they win tonight, I'm not going to. Okay, I'm okay with that. I've made my peace with it. I'm moving on. In the particular teams that I'm looking for, I already identified Boston, Tampa, LA, Houston, San Francisco, and San Diego as my key stacks. How? MLB leverage stacking tool right here under the MLB leverage stacks. What are they? Conveniently ranked number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. Now, I'm not real high on Boston to start this year, right? And they're the second leverage stack. And that's a good thing. But I may not want to put a lot of my resources into Boston tonight. Instead, I usually only do the top 4 or 5 teams. I picked up the 6th team tonight because I believe there's leverage in Houston. There was yesterday. There should be again today. I'm looking towards Houston as somebody I'm going to take a big chunk of. So when I set up the optimizer here, I went down in Boston. I put it, I want 5%, so I want a little bit of something on everybody, but I don't want more, I don't want more than 30% of any particular stack because I want to have 3 to 4 to 5 different teams stacked so that I get a little bit of a spread. I don't want much Boston. I do want more Tampa Bay, more Houston, more LA, more San Diego than I do Boston. So I took Boston and I cut them in half. Feel free to manipulate this however you want, however you feel that you're going to get the lineups that you need out of your day. And over here on the right side, 0 to 25%, that gives me at least 4 teams that are going to stack in with these 5 teams here. I'm going to get some Boston, Philly, maybe some Boston, LA, Boston, San Diego. That would be great. Okay, that's what I'm looking for, is those combinations. If you want to control the batting orders, you can. Typically, the leadoff hitter doesn't hit for a lot of power, and the 8 and 9 guy don't do a whole lot. So if you wanted to just go from 2 to 7, feel free. When I'm including a big 5 stack, though, I want all 9 guys available for salary reasons. But over here on the right side, I'm only using pairs and maybe a 3-pack. I'm going to cut this down sometimes and take out some of these bottom of the order guys and focus on the heart of the order that does most of the production. In here you can see I've already got my smiley faces on the guys that I want more of. I've got a 35% exposure max on my pitchers. I don't want to be too overweight on anybody. And I may bump DeGrom up to about 40 or 50%. I think that's good chalk to eat tonight, to be honest with you. But I would also like some Phillies stacks. If they come in here and I produce some Phillies stacks against DeGrom and Philly goes off, that's going to hurt 60 some odd percent of everybody else, and it's going to help me. That's good leverage. So I'm going to want to try and produce lineups that do that for me. Then I'm going to come down here and put a 50% max on my players. And I usually don't get that. With the 40% randomization, I usually don't get more than about 25-30% of any particular batter unless I make it otherwise, where I would take his projection and instead of 13 or whatever, make it 16, 17, 18, whatever. Or just force a minimum of 30% on the guy and roll forward from there. Again, those are things for you to fine tune. I'm just showing you the quickest way to set this baby up. Once I've got it set up the way my stacks, the way my formations, the way my caps and things are, I just hit optimize and I let it go. I'm not necessarily going to run these 75. I'm going to look at this. I'm going to analyze, is it giving me what I want? Is it a little too overweight on one side? Is it underweight on another? I'll go back up. I'll play with some of the projections to maybe reproduce what I'm looking more for, but I'm not going to take over and do all of the lifting myself. I rely on the optimizer a lot. The optimizer has been successful for me over the past couple of years. I'm playing the best baseball I've played over the past couple of years, and I'm doing less research and spending less time worrying about things than I have over the past couple of years. To me, that's a good thing. It allows me to branch out into NBA, hockey, PGA, Masters Week, whatever, and start to branch out and mitigate the risk of playing all of these different sports at once. Now, all I care about is, do I have the tools in place? Do I know how to use the tools? And am I having success? If that's the case, then I'd rather go cut my grass or listen to music or whatever. I don't need to dive deep into stats. If you do, then by all means, dive deep into them. Let those influence your decision, but come back to the optimizer and let the optimizer tell your story. Let it do the salary matching and let the algorithm randomize players and give you what it is that you're looking for as an overall game plan. A lot of DeGrom, 40% right up to the cap. If I wanted to go up to 50% DeGrom, I'll bet I could. Quintana is interesting. I didn't have him listed as one of my guys. Morejon's up there at 17%. I might put a force on him of 20. I don't know. These are the things that I'm going to start tweaking and going through. I'm going to look at these players. See, I didn't get many of these players, even though I've got a 50% max on them. I didn't go over 20%. I may go in and I may adjust the projections on some of these guys to bring them out in more of my lineups. Now I'm going to need some value with DeGrom because DeGrom's expensive. That may be why a lot of this spread has come out. I don't have access to a lot of studs tonight. So again, a different contrarian build might be to go down in your shares of DeGrom, hope he doesn't have a great night, go up in your shares of these stud hitters and hope one of them has a great night because you're going to get them at lower ownership. And hitters generally win your tournaments for you. Pitchers don't. It's just tonight DeGrom is one of the only aces on the slate. We're into the third and fourth starters in a lot of these early season rotations. I can check my stacks and make sure that I'm getting what I want. A lot of LA, a lot of San Diego, perfect. A lot of Tampa, not as much Boston, a little bit more Houston than I thought, so that's a good thing. And I come down here and see it loves pairing them with Chicago. If I don't want that much Chicago, I can come down here to 8% and I can cap it. I can do the same with Philly, but I like Philly, like I said. If they get to DeGrom, I've got massive leverage there. Dodgers, Chicago Cubs. I believe the wind's blowing out at Wrigley tonight. You can't have too many Cubs when the wind is blowing out. And we're just mixing and matching and playing the game. I go through here, I can check my lineups, and I can see the correlations. I've got an Angels stack with a couple of Mets. I've got a Padres stack with a couple of Brewers. Things are lining up, and they're working out really, really well. If I like what I see, I click download, and I've got my 75 lineups ready to go. Now I go reserve my contests, I dump the lineups in there, and in 15 minutes of talking to you, I'm over and done. I could do this in less. You can learn to do this in less than 15 minutes. You can spend 30 minutes tops on a slate from the first time you open up a tool to when you submit your lineups to the websites and be in and out and be competitive and be correlated and be smart with taking advantage of the leverage that our tools are showing you to exploit. If that's something that interests you, obviously you need to become a VIP here at DFSArmy.com. Use the coupon code DFS Army, get a 10% discount by clicking the link down there in the comment section of the video. I'm going to go ahead and unlock this one for everybody today. We'll lock the rest of them up the rest of the week, and I'll just show you my routine day in and day out. Maybe I use a different tool. Maybe I open up the starting lineups page. Maybe I open up, a little bit of sports betting and take a look at where the wind is blowing out and should I bet the over, should I bet the under, and how would that affect my DFS game? Because believe me, it will affect my DFS game if I'm betting on overs in certain games that everybody else is looking past. This is how you generate the leverage and take advantage of the people that don't have access to the tools. It gives you your edge, and that's why we are better players. That's why you see our Army hats up on top of all the leaderboards every single day, every single sport, every single slate. DFSArmy.com. Come inside and check us out. We'll talk to y'all real soon.